Alright, welcome to the screencast. Well, now it's time to party. So the Macedonians have been successful. Alexander has defeated Darius, king of Persia, and he is now king of Persia himself and lord of the world, essentially. So Arian tells us that the people of Babylon, they met Alexander, they welcomed him in, they brought him gifts and turned the city over to him. No reason really to disbelieve that. It's hard to tell what were in the hearts of the Babylonians, however, as they welcomed their conqueror. But as we talked about, the issue really was now the Macedonians were going to party, and they have been campaigning for years and fighting and killing for some time now, and now is really time to let their hair down, so to speak. Very funny from me. And they're going to go nuts. Now, that was fueled by some perceptions that the Macedonians had of the Babylonians. According to Curtius Rufus, this was the time when Alexander's military discipline was completely undermined. The Babylonians were convinced that essentially sex was on offer everywhere, and so was wine and drunkenness, and the women were freely available. And the Macedonians, they run amok on that first night, countless counts of rape, drunkenness, excess, wanton destruction, absolute sort of disaster zone, really. The Macedonians partied in Babylon for 34 days. And it would have just been sheer terror, I think, for the Babylonians themselves, especially the female members of the community. And there was, I told the story, how on the first night Alexander was really concerned. He actually heard what was going on, with the men were just running amok and just breaking down doors and raping the women and killing the menfolk who tried to defend them. Then Alexander actually sent out his bodyguard to quell the disturbances and to shut the Macedonians down, but they never returned because they joined in the fun, they joined in the partying, the sexual and drunken excess. So as Curtius says, here is where Alexander lost control of his men. The military discipline was completely undermined, and that's interesting because as far as the Macedonians are concerned, the goal is done. They've beaten the Persians, they have defeated Darius. Surely now's the time to party, smash stuff up, and then let's go home. Alexander has different ideas. A few prophecies that are linked with Alexander. There's the one here from the book of Daniel in the Bible. Ostensibly, this is sort of taken to be Alexander defeating Darius, and then the death of Alexander and the breakup of his empire. And there is a second prophecy with the Babylonian one, and also about the reign of Alexander destroying the Persians and taking charge. But now what we have here with the prophecies, not so much do these prophecies, are they accurate or anything? They're prophecies, they're always accurate when we look backwards. But the thing is we have got sort of these ideas of essential parts of civilization are chiming in with the myth of Alexander. They're adding to the myth of Alexander and inserting themselves in the myth of Alexander. It's like everyone wants a piece of the conqueror and wants to be a part of the story. And that's the most interesting thing, I think, that these people are trying to jump onto the coattails of the story of Alexander and making him a part of their story. After Babylon, Alexander moved to Susa. There's essentially three cities that were the capitals of the Babylonian Empire, of the Persian Empire, Babylon, Susa, and later Persepolis. At Susa, they opened their gates, no issue, and Sisygambis, the mother of Darius, whom had formed a very close relationship with Alexander, here's where he set her up in a beautiful palace. There is a story by Diodorus of Alexander sitting on Darius' throne, but his little legs were too short and they were dangling in the air. And then one of his officials brought a small table for him to put his feet on, caused the Persians to cry. Alexander asked why they're weeping, and he said, well, that's that very table that your feet are on. That was the table that Darius used to eat his meals off. Alexander was mortified. I'm going to start coughing soon. But I'm going to push on. But the Macedonians said, no, that's dead right. This is what you should be doing now as king of Persia, is having your feet on Darius' table. Then we come to Persepolis, probably the most beautiful palace in the ancient world. This must have been beyond compare, and you can see what's left here of the friezes. Reconstruction here. This would have been an absolutely outstanding, beautiful place. And the problem was that the Greeks decided to party, and no one parties quite like a Greek, and things got pretty out of hand. A lot of drunkenness. In fact, some prostitutes there at the party, and one of them jumped up. She was the mistress of Ptolemy, one of Alexander's generals. Her name was Theas, and she said, what a wonderful revenge it would be if we burn this palace down. She was from Athens, and so her story was that this would be great revenge for the Persian sacking of Athens during the Persian Wars. Alexander was reluctant, but was actually persuaded by his friends. let's do it. So Alexander led the way with a wreath on his head, and they burning torches, and outside they went, and Alexander led the charge and thrown the burning torches onto the roof of the palace, and they burnt it to the ground. The rest of the army, seeing the flames, they rushed up, thinking there's a massive fire to put out, but seeing a drunken Alexander laughing and drinking and throwing more burning torches on the palace, they joined in the fun. Why on earth would you do that? Well, gosh, who knows? Arian says it was policy, just poor policy. What he doesn't mention is the drunken party and the prostitutes and the drinking to excess of Alexander. Plutarch points out that Alexander really did have a problem with alcohol, and this was symptomatic of that. And Curtius points out it was a drunken party that just got out of control. Arian, he hasn't mentioned those things. Michael Wood, he says, well, perhaps they just hated the place. They were stuck there for 4 months. There was nothing there. It was a ghost windswept town, and winter was about to set in and it was getting freezing, so why not burn the place? Well, I don't know. I mean, burning the place is ridiculous because it was Alexander's property now. This was just a massive misstep in Alexander's campaign. But the big issue is that what the Alexander's men saw as that this is a clear sign that we are the conquerors, that we've won, and now we're destroying the place, and we're going to take all the loot, and we're going to go home and be rich and respected for the rest of our lives. Can't wait. Now, they took the burden of the palace of Persephone as a clear sign of that. However, as we talked about, Alexander has got different ideas. He's going to go and conquer the world, and he means that quite literally. The known world was Europe and part of Asia. Alexander is going to go and conquer all of it. As men, as far as they're concerned, they've achieved the goal. They've conquered the Persians. It's time to go home now, rich and respected. Alexander has different ideas. So it's here we start to see Alexander and his men are starting to sort of break apart. They're still really going to follow Alexander right to the end, but we are seeing a real difference in attitudes and goals here. And the first sign of that is that Alexander starts to organize the empire. Why would a conqueror do this? Because he's not only a conqueror, he's going to stay and he's going to be the king of Persia and the ruler of the world. So the Persians had the satraps policy where you had essentially each area within the empire was ruled by a satrap, like a governor. And Alexander kept this policy. In some places he put Macedonians in charge, but in many places he reappointed Persians to be the satraps. And Mazaeus was actually reappointed to be the satrap of Babylon. He became a key ally of Alexander. Now this really upset the man because it's a clear sign that, oh, maybe we're not going home. Why has he organized this empire? Surely we're going to burn the place and take stuff and go home. So this is where we have a breakdown between the men and Alexander himself. Okay, that was us. Hope you enjoyed it. Ka kite.